Hello, welcome. So, why does cow shit matter? So, my project is essentially about trying to transform agricultural waste into building materials, and I've been particularly looking at two products, maize and cow manure, and testing for a hands-on approach how they could be transformed into construction materials. So, my proposal is to install an on-site agricultural waste facility in Glastonbury, which I'll go into in more depth later. And I'm just going to backtrack a little bit now and kind of explain the context of how I got to this point. So, waste as opportunity, learning from nature, and resource efficiency are the kind of critical concerns that I've been looking at for my project. And as I mentioned, it's situated on the site of Glastonbury Festival in Somerset, near where I grew up, and I'm interested in this urban to rural transition that site undergoes. So I began my project by exploring maize and looking at different material properties and how it could be transformed into biodegradable building materials. I then moved on to looking at manure, and got really excited at this idea of anaerobic digestion, how you can transform cow manure into biogas. This led me to looking at a place called the Ship Museum in Italy, where they've found a way of building with this material and they've exhibited it in these beautiful installations. And I began to look at how this architecture could look and what would this look like within the context of a festival. So thirdly, for the technical inquiry, I've been trying to push this interest into cow manure as a building material to see if I could make these bricks, so looking at this idea of murder cotta, and I had a go at making these bricks, as you'll see in a sec. So it all starts with obviously the origin of shit, which is from the cow. I then actually went over to the farm and scooped some up, and then heated it to dry it out, and mixed it with clay, which I just also sourced locally. Then mixed it all together. I did a kind of a variety of different ratios, and then basically just moulding it like clay until you get to the consistency that you want, and then forming it into kind of a little timber formwork, and then leaving it to sun dry. I have been interested in trying to kiln dry some of the stuff, but it's been difficult at the moment because I don't have access to a kiln, but I'll get onto that a little bit more later. So these are kind of some of the end products on my Instagram page. This is 100% manure, that's 75%, and that is 50%. This was really inspired by some of the primitive technology videos, which is a guy in the outback in Australia who builds all these construction materials and houses from natural materials found in the rainforest. So, 4, site. So I've developed this network of contacts from growing up near Glastonbury and working with Block 9 during my placement. And originally my project was kind of going in 3 different directions, but due to the festival being cancelled, it's gone to this agricultural waste facility. So I started looking at the 3 farms that are located on the site of Glastonbury and did kind of an analysis of these farms to see how they're managing their waste currently. And I went to meet a guy called Steve, who's the farm manager at Worthy Farm, and got all this useful information off him, and started talking about this industrialised versus local system. So this is what the site of Worthy Farm looks like where my project is. So this is the cow shed over here, and that's where all the maize comes in, and this is where the manure is stored. There's an anaerobic digester that's installed over there. This is a site model. I was trying to kind of model up the site to see the contours and topography. As you can see, there's an existing anaerobic digester on the site, and in the orange is where I'm proposing to install mine. So I started analysing the system of what's happening to manure at the moment within the farm, and it gets to the digester and then currently is being mainly used as fertiliser. Just to give you an insight of what the site looks like, these are some images, these are some surrounding buildings to the farm. That's the cow shed. This is the slurry pit. And there is one existing anaerobic digester, as I mentioned, which is on the site, which is currently transforming cow manure into biogas, which looks like this. So, on to the proposition. So my proposal is to think of Glastonbury as a series of body parts, so maybe the heart is the pyramid stage, but my proposal is to design the digestive system, so the stomach of Glastonbury, so transforming the agricultural waste into building materials and sustainable energy. So looking at the site, I've decided to locate my project over this side, mainly because it is located in adjacency to a digestate tank, which I'm going to build the bricks out of, and also a maize storage, and because of the access in and out of the site. I became interested in looking at Dutch barn typologies because they're scattered around Somerset everywhere, and I wanted to kind of integrate this into the farming language of my proposal. I started to draw some of these and really think about how this could work spatially on the site, different orientations, and thinking about maybe these are the end part of the digestate kind of intestine system. Again, just sketching through different iterations of how this could look on site. And then I started to model some of these, so looking at how these 4 Dutch barn structures, how if they were orientated or pulled and pushed in different ways could create internal and external spaces. And this led me to this programming diagram where I'm essentially looking at 4 typologies, which are all potentially Dutch barns. So the first is a workshop, and then a studio, storage and a museum. This led me to looking at H.G. Matthews and thinking, why the hell have I not been looking at them before? Because obviously they make these wood-fired handmade bricks and also have this focus on unnatural and waste materials. That then led me to looking at this typology of a bottle kiln, which was used in the 1940s, typically in Northern England, and how I could integrate this in. But I was still struggling for kind of a parameter of what my facility is actually going to produce, so I did this phasing of how much manure is actually being produced at Worley Farm. So the average cow produces 50 litres a day. There's 500 cows on the site. 80% of this manure is used to fertilise the fields. So this allowed me to establish that 10,000 bricks would be my parameters of how many I would produce each day within this facility. This is what 10,000 bricks looks like. That's a metre cubed. I'm not actually sure what that equates to in a house yet, but I'll let you know some other time. So then just started to go through a number of different iterations of how this phasing kind of infrastructure would influence the spaces and kind of program and layout of the workshop. Looking at how this bottle kiln could be used, if not actually fired, maybe as a museum space, and starting to collage inside what it looked like. And this has led me really to kind of a phased proposition, which I'll talk you through now. So it starts with a cow producing manure, then installing adequate storage for this manure, then installing an anaerobic digester, which actually transforms the manure into biogas, which is then transformed is then used to fire the bricks which have been produced in the facility within a kiln. All of these bricks are then stored in one of the Dutch barn structures, and then later down the line I would like to propose an educational facility where students come learn about agricultural waste, and then a museum which will exhibit and test some of these materials. So just moving on to kind of my final iterations of drawings for now. This is the site plan. So as you can see, there's 4 structures that sit on the site. Just working through how these could work internally. So this is where I'm at the moment. So that's the workshop, the storage, the studio and the museum. And these are kind of accesses from in and out. I've just pulled the studio across, and that's a digestate tank on that side. And then, just looking at it in sections. So the idea is that this bottle kiln structure would actually be used as a museum space, and then how it would sit into the slope of the site. And just looking at kind of the massing of it, this is what it's looking like at the moment. So that's basically where I'm at. I'm aware there's a lot going on and there's a lot of refining needs to happen, but thanks for listening, and let's have a chat.